This is a video that I've been wanting to make for a while, and that is a video talking about games that I love, but no one else ever really seems to talk about or know about. We have a wide range of games today. Some of them are indie, some of them are actually more like AAA, but have just kind of been since forgotten. Some of them are retro, some of them are modern. Let's just get into it. Actually, before we get into it, I just wanted to note that none of these games are actually in any particular order. These are just kind of like the order that I thought of them in. The first game on my list is called Momodora Reverie Under the Moonlight. Now, this is actually the fourth game in a long-running series. This game in particular is a Metroidvania, is like almost Souls-like. As you can see from the gameplay on your screen, this game is absolutely gorgeous. You start out the game in like this foresty environment, and then from there you kind of just carry on with like, you know, the typical Metroidvania staples. You explore the environments, you come across new environments in the game, you get new abilities. Later in the game, you'll have to go back and, you know, use those abilities on things from earlier in the game. Now, it is worth noting that this game isn't very long. It's along the lines of something like a Metroid Zero mission, actually shorter than that. Even if you're a veteran of the series, you could easily knock this game out, and I want to say anywhere from like 3 to 4 hours, maybe 5. I honestly forget how long my original playthrough took. I want to say it took me somewhere around like 3-ish hours maybe. It's not the longest game in the world, but it is absolutely worth every single second and worth every single penny, whether you pay full price, whether you get it on sale. It's not a very expensive game. I can't remember the exact cost, but I want to say it's less than 20 bucks. Everything from the art style to the sound design to the level design, the overly just masterful world design in general, the way that everything interconnects, and you know, the Metroidvania staple, when I think Metroidvania, right? One of the staples of the series, or one of the staples of the genre to me, is when you get that ability and you're like, and it just, you have that moment where it clicks and it's like, oh, I have to go back in the game and use it at this spot, and you just kind of like remember exactly almost everywhere where you need to use this thing. But you also have those moments where it's like, oh, I completely forgot about this, and then you end up getting like another ability. This game strikes the perfect balance of having those moments where it's like, oh yeah, now I know where to use this, but also like, oh, I wouldn't have thought to use that. I didn't even know that was a thing. And furthermore, the music in this game, I wish I could play for you guys, but I'm not sure if this stuff is copyrighted. You know, it's real tricky with YouTube. You never know what's copyrighted and what isn't. But man, the music in this game, please just go look up some of the I honestly, this game is actually rather niche, so I don't know if any of the soundtrack would be on YouTube, but if it is, definitely go look it up, and if not, just go play the game. Oh, and did I mention the boss designs? Again, I don't want to show any of that stuff because I don't want to spoil it, but man, the bosses in this game are insane. Next up, we have a game called Omno. Now, this is very much your journey type of game, where it's more about, you know, no pun intended, the journey rather than, you know, just like some completion goal. This game is absolutely gorgeous. I adore everything about this game. Once again, the music, the art style. I don't even know how to describe the art style. I almost want to call it low poly, but it's not really low poly. The music is this soft, ambient, magical, just oh so heavenly soundtrack that plays in the background. Like, I'm not kidding. The soundtrack to this game is so beautiful, it brought me to tears. This game is an awesome mix of like that journey type gameplay where you have those moments where you're just kind of like surfing throughout the landscape, but then it's also like 3D puzzle platformer in a way. Now, don't worry, you know, if you're anything like me and you're terrible at puzzles, that the puzzles aren't that hard in this game. It's just a very general term where it's like, hey, yes, there's environmental puzzles, but they're not difficult. The game as a whole isn't difficult. You know, even the most novice or newbie of gamers would be able to get through this game no problem. But again, you'll just be going throughout, and you know, it's one of those games where you progress through the environments, through the levels. You'll never necessarily be like backtracking or anything like that, but you do gain new abilities that grant you access to various things in the environment that you wouldn't have been able to do or interact with before. And furthermore, there's almost like a collectathon element to it, because in each section there's only, you know, some very basic puzzles that you need to do to progress, but optionally, if you want to go for the extra collectibles, you know, if you're like a trophy or achievement hunter, or if you just simply, you know, want to go for that stuff, I mean, the option is there, and it's really fun to do so. In fact, this was one of those times, because depending on the game, right, like some games I go out of my way to 100%, other ones I just kind of play for the credits. This one, I didn't necessarily 100% it, but I did go for a lot more of the extra collectibles than even I was expecting to. I was like, oh wow, this is actually really fun. You get into the groove, and I don't necessarily want to say that you put your brain on autopilot, but you almost get into like this zen state rather, where it's like, you know, you're jiving with like that soft ambient music, you're relaxing, and you're just kind of casually going through, picking up the collectibles, getting these new abilities. And the game, again, the ending brought me to tears. This game as a whole is just so beautiful. I cried so many times playing this game just because of how beautiful it was. And it's not one of those games where it's like, you know, it's trying to make you cry. It's literally just that beautiful that I couldn't help it. Please, if you get the chance, play Omno. Again, one of those games you can probably beat in like 3 to 5 hours, I want to say. I think my playthrough took somewhere in there 3 to 4-ish hours, I think. I'm a sucker for these journey type of games, though, whether it be the original Journey game or other games that just kind of have like a similar vibe, like Omno Omno, or a lot of other ones that I actually wanted to include in this video, but I simply didn't just because there's so many of them. I could almost make an entire video dedicated to like journey-like games like Abzu and a Memoir Blue, for example. Next up, we have a game called Cat Quest. Now, Cat Quest, there's two games. There's Cat Quest 1 and Cat Quest 2. For the sake of this video, we'll just focus on Cat Quest 1, but I will also lump Cat Quest 2 into this technically. Cat Quest is exactly as it sounds. If I could describe the game in terms of the art style and gameplay itself, it almost gives me vibes of Paper Mario, if you've ever played those games, except a little bit different. Like, it's more about like the real-time combat and RPG elements. It's almost, when it comes to the like loot and RPG elements, that in itself is sort of like Diablo with the way like the gear and the loot works, and then with the combat, again, that's more like real-time action-y. I don't necessarily want to compare it to Diablo because it's not exactly like that, but you know, it's like very hacky and slashy. There's a surprising amount of depth in this game too. If you want to be a pyromancer, you can do that. If you want to be a wizard, you can do that. If you want to be an absolute tank with a massive hammer, you can do that. If you want to go like quick slash with like quick swords, you can do that. There's a great deal of content here too, and this is one of those games where it constantly goes on sale for less than $3 on the eShop, and its sequel always goes on sale for less than $5 on the eShop. If you wanted to, you could probably knock out the main story in less than 5 hours, but if you stick around for all the content in the game and you really try to 100% it, you're gonna get at least a dozen hours out of this game, if not more. For sure, you can beat the game at a reasonably high level, but then once you start exploring the world, you'll see all these dungeons that are like level 99, and it just goes higher and higher, and then that's not to mention like the new Game Plus mode and all that. This game is absolutely adorable. For those that don't know, also, when it comes to like dogs and cats, I am more of a cat guy, so this game was immediately calling my name, and there's tons of cat puns to boot all throughout the game. I don't want to say that the entire game is puns, but you know, it's almost like every other sentence, like somebody's gonna be like, oh, that's perfect. All in all, this game is absolutely amazing, and again, it's one of those games where it's like, man, it's unfortunate that I don't really hear people talking about this one, because like, sure, it's not the most difficult game in the world, but there's a lot of charm. It's absolutely adorable, and I highly recommend it. Oh, and the music. The music is great in this game. It just, you know, it has that, I don't even know how to explain it. It's almost like the, you know, like the heroic feeling to it, where it's like, it's super triumphant sounding, and the art style is wonderful in this game as well. So yeah, highly recommend this one. Next up, we got the Super Stardust games. Now, there's multiple games that I could highlight. I could either highlight the original from the PS3, Super Stardust Portable on the PSP, or Super Stardust Delta on the PS Vita. And honestly, I couldn't pick one, so cue random Stardust Delta gameplay now. Anyway, this is a series of shoot-'em-up games, or for those of you that are familiar with these kinds of games, shmups. But this is like a shoot-'em-up bullet hell type of game where it's just, you know, it's like, it's absolute chaos the entire time. Like, there's stuff all over the screen, but the cool thing about this game, or the gimmick of this game, is you're not just fighting enemies. Like, don't get me wrong, there's tons of enemies to boot, there's, you know, bullets flying all over the screen, but you're also, a part of the challenge, or a part of the fight, is actually just like fighting against like the meteors and rocks that are like falling on the planet that you're, you know, flying across and fighting on. You got different abilities and different elements of fire too, depending on like what kind of enemy or what type of like rock that you're trying to destroy. Like, sometimes the blue rocks, you might need to use ice element against that. There might be red fire rocks where you need to use like fire element against that. And then different bosses have like different weaknesses. Like, I think to the final boss of Super Stardust Portable, which is, you know, technically just like a port of a PS3 game, he has like all these different phases where you need to use like different elements of your ship and stuff like that, you know, corresponding to like which weapon he has out at the time. So yeah, if you're into shoot-'em-up games, even if you're not into shoot-'em-up games, I would say that this is a great entry point, because if you play the game on easy, sure, it'll be super easy, but if you want to bump up the difficulty, well, this game can get insanely challenging. So, you know, it's a pretty cheap pickup too, and it is still available on like the PS Vita and the PS3 and all that. I'm not sure if this game ever got a physical release for the PSP, so in terms of official means, I'm not really sure how you could go about getting this game on the PSP, but I'm sure you can figure it out. There was a ton of shmups that I really wanted to highlight in this video because I love shoot-'em-ups, whether it be like the Raiden series, or, you know, the R-Type series, or the Stardust series, or games like Resogun, and just, there's so many shmups that I love, ranging from like, you know, retro arcade stuff up to modern stuff that's coming out. But, you know, I figured I could pose myself, just keep it to one shmup for this video. I'll try to keep it to like only 1 or 2 shmups per video, but I can't help it. I love these kinds of games. Next up, we got Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger 9. Now, this is a part of the bigger Azure Striker series, which in itself, I feel like I could have put that entire series in this video, just because I love the Azure Striker. Like, it goes just beyond like the Azure Striker stuff. Like, there's like a whole like universe there, but this game is just like, you know, one of the sub-series in that whole universe. But Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger 9, this is essentially like a Mega Man type game. It is a 2D action platformer, as you can see on your screen. The art style is absolutely gorgeous. The gameplay is very satisfying. It's that classic Mega Man thing where you're going to be going, and throughout the game, you're going to be getting new abilities, new special weapons. Certain bosses will be more weak technique to certain weapons. This is one of those games where it's easy to learn, but very difficult to master. Again, this is a situation where even the most novice gamers could most definitely get through this game. I don't want to say no problem, because there will definitely be some parts where, you know, you're gonna have to work for your victories, but compared to something like, I don't know, Mega Man 1 on the NES, this definitely isn't as difficult as that. Not saying that Mega Man 1 is like an overly difficult game by any means, I'm just saying, you know, in comparison to like difficulty, there's a whole lot of different like strategies and techniques and different like moves that you can pull off, and depending on that, you know, you can clear the levels in faster times, which is an element here, like get higher ratings for beating the levels faster. Granted, there isn't necessarily like a time limit by any means, but if you're able to start speedrunning the game, learning the way that you know, learning how the game ticks per se, you are rewarded for that. But man, I absolutely adore this game, and this is another situation where I love the game, I love the story, the characters, the music is absolutely killer. You know, even all this time after I have played this game and its sequel, I still just, you know, go into YouTube, look up the soundtrack from time to time, and just listen to it when I'm cleaning or I'm going on a run, because it's so good. If you end up enjoying this game, there is a sequel, Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger 9-2. I highly recommend either of them. They're both amazing games, and so are like just the rest of the Azure Striker games and every other game that is tied to that universe. Next up, we got an oldie but a goodie, and that is Super Buster Bros. Now, yeah, I know there's gonna be some people like, hey, Buster Bros, what about the original from 1989? Don't get me wrong, I love that game too, but I specifically wanted to highlight Super Buster Bros just because that's the one that I play most often, and that's the one that I'm always revisiting. Now, my mom actually showed me this game, and I mean, you're seeing the gameplay on your screen. It's a relatively simple concept. You just shoot the chain link or whatever it is up to the ceiling, you split the bubbles, and you know, once you split all the bubbles, you complete the level. There's two different modes. You got the career mode where you know, go on like this whole tournament. I mean, you can beat the game in about like an hour, maybe less or something like that. You know, you just go through, pop all the bubbles and stuff like that. But then there's also like an infinite mode where you can kind of just casually go in and just see how long you can survive. And yeah, I mean, that's really all there is to the game, but it never gets old. The music is chill, but it really fits the game. The art style, I mean, it's the classic SNES style, and if anybody knows me, you know that I absolutely adore the art style of SNES games, or that very iconic specific SNES art style, because, you know, like, obviously there was a lot of different art styles present on the SNES, but like that one art style where it's like kind of almost looking like a cartoon, like a Saturday morning cartoon, but it's like very obviously a SNES game. Like, SNES games have a very specific look. If you're looking for a good pick up and play game, this is definitely one of those. Next up, we got N.O.V.A Near Orbit Vanguard Alliance. Now, this actually started life as like, you know, a game on the App Store, and I actually have a lot of nostalgia for some of those classic games on the App Store, you know, in the early days, like the ones developed by Gameloft, whether it be Modern Combat or N.O.V.A or all of the open world games they used to make. I actually still have my iPod Touch 4th generation. It's not my original one, because my original one kind of bit the dust a while ago, but I literally repurchased one just so I could like just you know, keep reliving that nostalgia. I have all those games still installed on there, but the reason that I'm highlighting this is because it is still available, even though it was delisted from like the App Store, like the original one that we're talking about right now. It was available as a PSP Mini for some time. Now, obviously, again, getting PSP Minis is kind of hard nowadays, so you know, you can figure out how to get it. If I could describe this game, I would describe it as Halo on the PlayStation Portable. I mean, you're seeing the gameplay. Like, this is literally just a first-person shooter on the PSP, and furthermore, it's like a Halo clone on the PSP. The music's great. Performance-wise, it runs great. I actually really enjoy the story. Is it the most complicated thing in the world? No, but it doesn't need to be. The gameplay is satisfying. The graphics are pretty good for a PSP game. Again, the performance is great, and the final boss was actually pretty awesome. Again, it's essentially just like Halo on the PSP. What else do I really need to say? Next up, we have an absolutely beautiful game called Entwined. This is another game that put me in tears. So, the premise of the game is that a bird and a fish are in love, but obviously they're a bird and a fish, so they can never be together. And essentially, the game is controlled with both of the analog sticks. The left stick controls the fish, and the right stick controls the bird. And it's kind of hard to explain how this game works, because it's not exactly a rhythm game. Like, the patterns themselves kind of do have a rhythm to them, but they don't necessarily follow the patterns or the rhythm of the music. And as you're watching the gameplay, you might be like, oh, that's all that there is to it? That probably gets boring after a while. But no, just, you know, the fact that you're controlling two of them at the same time, it's enough to keep your brain fully engaged. And I literally sat there and played this game for like a solid 2 or 3 hours straight, beat the entire story mode, went through a bunch of the challenge mode. Not even once did I feel close to bored. Like, I only wanted to keep going. The art style here is so unique and so beautiful that I literally don't even know how to describe it. The music is soulful. You can feel the passion in every single note that is being played, and it's one of those games where you honestly need to play with headphones or surround sounds. Me personally, I play all of my games with my surround sound systems on, and it's it took it to a whole other level. And then once you complete a level, or once you like build up enough of the meter, like once you collect enough of these orbs and hit enough of those panels in a row, then you're able to combine the fish and the bird and you become this beautiful dragon. And then while you're the dragon, you have to go around, collect some more orbs, and then you're able to leave behind like this beautiful rainbow stream of all the power that you just collected, essentially, which then takes you to the next level, which each level is actually a lifetime in this game, which made me cry even more by the time that I got to the end of the game, because it's like, man, this fish and this bird have been trying for literal lifetimes just to be together. And man, there's like a whole message when you start the game where it says like always together, forever apart. It's such an amazing and beautiful game, and I cannot recommend it enough. It's available on the PS4 and the Vita. I remember hearing inklings that it was supposed to release on the PS3, but I can't verify that. But I do know for a fact that I do have it on my PS4 and my Vita. Next up, we have a game called Endling, Extinction is Forever. Now, this game released back in 2022, so it is a bit more of a modern release. And this one, I didn't hear too much about it. It was a part of like PS Plus a couple months ago, so that probably helped with its popularity. But this game, wow, this is another one that just sent me into tears, especially, I'm actually about to cry right now just like thinking about it. This game is so beautiful and so heart-wrenching from its message and the game itself and just like everything. Essentially, in this game, you are playing as a mother fox, and you are trying to protect your 4 cubs, whether that be going out and getting them food, keeping them safe from, you know, like other prey or other hostile creatures and animals in the woods and stuff, or hunters and scavengers and stuff like that. And I can't say a whole lot about this game, unfortunately, because this is another one of those games where it's not necessarily the longest game in the world, and a lot of stuff happens all at once. But the main gameplay loop involves going out at nighttime, trying to like protect your cubs and stuff like that. But there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot of story here, and essentially, if I could sum it up without spoiling it, it is the effect that humans have on nature and the world as a whole, and the animals and habitats, and just the world as a whole, especially from like the industrialization side of things. Again, there's not a whole lot that I can really say about it, but man, this is one of those games where, again, I was having a lot of fun with it the entire time that I played it. You know, it was a super chill experience, and by the end of the game, I was literally, like, just drowning in my own tears. Like, it was so beautiful, yet so sad. It really made me think about a lot of things, too. Like, you know, if you want a game to make you think, or at least just, you know, kind of make you cry, then this is definitely one of them. But at the very least, it is very much so worth playing. It has a very important and beautiful and powerful message. And furthermore, the game itself, it is actually, like, just a pretty solid, fun gameplay loop. This is definitely one of those games, again, where you can get into that zen state where you just go night to night, helping out your cubs until, you know, the next thing in the story happens, and, you know, you never have to worry about getting lost or anything like that. This is a 2.5D game, which in itself, you know, there's only like a couple directions you can go at any time. You have an entire map that kind of like lays out where you need to go, and again, this is one of those games where the art style is amazing, the music is beautiful, and oh my gosh, speaking of the music, I can't say what the song's name is because it will spoil the ending, but the credits music to this game, it's so good. You hear the song a couple of times throughout the game before the ending, but every time I heard it, I remember, because even before I knew what was going to happen at the end, I was walking around, you know, playing as the fox, and I heard that music. I was like, where is that? So I ran around with all my cubs, and I found the girl singing with the guitar or whatever, and I literally just sat there and listened, because it was just so beautiful. It literally gave me chills. I just sat there and listened to it. I found her again later in the game, and then at that time, I was actually, you know, you were able to get a lot closer to her that time, so I just really sat there and soaked in the music, and then when I heard it again during the credits, it kind of gave like a whole different meaning to it, and yeah, really hit home. But again, Endling, Extinction is Forever. It was free on PS Plus a while ago, so if you have PlayStation, it's possible that you may already have it, but such a beautiful game. Next up, we have a game that I'm not sure I wanted to include simply due to the fact that it is based on Disney's arguably most, you know, like famous or well-known IP. That is the Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse for the Super Nintendo. Now, the only reason that I'm mentioning this is because it was for the Super Nintendo, which means that it is a bit of an older game, so the newer generation probably hasn't heard of it. Obviously, if you're a little bit older like me, then you are very well familiar with this game, because this one is an absolute classic. It is a 2D action-ish platformer. I say action-ish because it's not like you're necessarily killing anybody in this game, but at the same time, I don't know what happens to those bosses after you defeat them. I won't talk about this one for too long again, because I didn't know if I necessarily wanted to include it in the list, if this actually even counts. So the way I see it in this video, I technically, if you count this one, then there's 11 games that we're talking about, but if you don't really count this one, then There's 10 games that we're talking about, and this one's just the bonus one. But yeah, definitely worth checking out. I love this game. And there's a couple sequels to it on the SNES as well, which all of them are great as well. Although one of them is exclusive to Japan, I believe it is. So that's a thing, but, you know, I found a way to play it anyway, and, yeah, that one was amazing as well. And finally, we have a game that is available for, I believe, PC. It is also available on PSP and PS Vita, which is the way that I played it on PS Vita, and that is Age of Zombies. In this game, you play as Barry Steak Fries, and this is essentially a twin-stick zombie shooter. You're gonna be picking up pistols, shotguns, SMGs, flamethrowers, grenades, you name it. Horde after horde of zombies is gonna be coming your way. Eventually, you're gonna have to fight some bosses, and this game is just awesome. For some reason, the main character really reminds me of the main character from Jetpack Joyride. I don't know if there's any resemblance or connection there, or if maybe some of the developers are the same, or if the developer is the same. Honestly, forgot to look that up. Maybe there actually isn't any connection there. Maybe I'm just crazy, but yeah, this game is awesome. There's not much else I can say about it. Again, the gameplay is awesome, the art style is awesome, the music is awesome. And for those that don't know, I actually really love twin-stick shooters. I could honestly make an entire video, once again, just dedicated to twin-stick shooters, or just, you know, underrated ones that I feel like deserve some more love. But I do have some other notes down of, like, you know, a possible sequel I would like to make to this video if this one ends up doing well. It dives a bit deeper into the unknown. It covers some Xbox 360 indie games. It covers some, you know, just, you know, lesser known indie games in general, some retro games. I even have an Atari 2600 title on that list. So if you guys want a sequel to this video where I cover all of that stuff, or it gets even more, you know, in the weeds of like the nitty gritty and the unknown, then yeah, you know, I'd definitely love to make that. But anyway, those are the games that I have for this video. Again, it was technically 11, but maybe only 10 if you didn't count the Mickey Mouse game, you know, just 10 plus a bonus one, just however you look at it, 11 games in total. If you guys would want a sequel to this video, I'll be more than happy to do so, but if not, well then that's cool too. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Are there some underrated games that you feel like more people should know about? Do you disagree? And are there actually like cult followings for these games that I don't know about? Just whatever it is, whatever thing. I would definitely love to hear from you guys. But anyway, as always, a massive shout out, thank you to all the Patreons and channel members, thank you to all in the low baller tier, and a shout out, thank you to all in the big baller tier, Asking me dad, and many of the biggest shout out to all in G tier run events, similar cheese girl. Thank you guys so much, you guys are literal legends. I love you. Thank you guys for watching. Have an amazing day. Stay beautiful. I love you all. Peace.